Good to go, Bob.
Thank you. Welcome everybody to Monday, May 13th Fire Exec Committee meeting. Just to let you know, this meeting will be streamed live and recorded for public viewing on the town's YouTube page using the following link, and that would be www.youtube.com/@town-of-Plympton-Wyoming/streams. In number 2 here in the agenda today, if anybody has a pecuniary interest, you can declare it now or anytime throughout the meeting. Number 3, the agenda today. Minutes be adopted. The Fire Exec Committee and the no confidential minutes of the closed session of the committee remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection Privacy Act. We have the Fire Exec Committee meeting minutes of March the 18th, 2024. That was moved by Mr. Gary Atchison, second by Christian. Everybody had an opportunity to have a look at those minutes. Any corrections or changes? Okay. All in favor? Gary, thank you. Okay, moving on. Number 4. Any business arising from the previous minutes? Had an opportunity to look at them there. Take out of there and discuss or have updated while we have everybody here. Pardon, you have any
From the previous
yes,
minute,
from the any
I think
questions?
we were talking about training, educational stuff, were we?
Item, is it on the one of the items?
I can bring it up under new business.
It was a training, was it training for firefighters
Oh,
or?
there's
Oh, got it, okay.
the business arising previous minutes, educational information. Outside detector. Page 5.
Okay, sorry. What information are you working with?
Yes. I just wanted to expand on it.
I feel. That did it. We get the battlefield.
I just wanted to expand on it, that we did our training with the Ontario Fire Marshal. And I asked the question about what would you consider an educational training program? Basically, have some information in one spot of how things work in all different spots. So I just want to know that that's the goal, to have some sort of one package.
Through the chair, if I may, absolutely. The goal ultimately is to put together a life safety education program for Wyoming, and it is one of our higher priorities. Unfortunately, the last couple of weeks have been tied up with something else, but it's to be started. It was to be started by April time for to have something back to you folks by the fall. That is still our intent.
That's all you have on that? Gary, you have anything at all on the? Sure. Gentlemen, chiefs, you have anything you'd want to discuss? Yeah, I don't think I have anything on there. We'll be talking about the old pumper truck here maybe a little later. Okay, then. Okay, 5 on the accounts. Have a look at those, and that was moved by Kristen Rodriguez and seconded by Gary Atchison. The Fire Exec Committee receives and approves the payables for March 2024 and April 2020.
So just to, if I may, through the chair, just a couple items on there that they come out of the grants that we've been able to receive. So they wouldn't be the overall, those payables, though we're paying them out, they would not come out of that regular operational budget that we've put forth. So, for example, the backboards and restraints, the grit packs, the books and the first responder training are all, they would all be paid for out of grants, and they're significant numbers if you see them there. So they would be coming out of the community emergency management grant that we've been successful at getting, and the cannabis grant that council bestowed upon us. Go ahead with the emergency responder training.
Any, Kristen, do you have any questions on the payables and March or April?
Well, in March, so we have, the general contractor there for, Kamlaki, I believe it is. I don't think, it doesn't state, but I believe that's for Kamlaki's repairs.
That's if it's through the chair. Yes, absolutely. So that is for Kamlaki's repairs. The walls, the entire wall and the structure in the wall and the fire chief's office was rotted out and had to be repaired. That was the cost of doing that. As well as the fire door that was in Kamlaki does not meet the current, or did not meet the current code, as the room can handle more than 100 people. Therefore, it had to be replaced. Unfortunately, it had a window in it, and because it has a window in it, it had to be replaced in its entirety because it required a panic bar system to be put on.
Yeah, so I just, are there still any more ongoing repairs that need to be done there?
Well, we've got some certain things that we're going to have to do when it comes to getting ready for the carcinogen prevention program. But if I could, I'd like to defer that right now. We're gonna come back to you with an entire carcinogen prevention program with outlines over the next 24 months for your perusal. You'll probably receive that, I would say by late summer, early fall. But there are some improvements there. Initially, we had planned to spend some money on putting showers in. That's not gonna be possible. The amount of money we put aside doesn't meet the actual requirement. We had very little time to get those bids done. So we'll be looking at that as a next year capital project. The majority of that capital project that we did was put back into the money to do the restorations from the mold remediation. So we'll be looking again, like I said, it's showers next fall. We have a plan, I think that we've kind of put together. We just need to put it on paper so that we're all prepared in case we get questioned about our carcinogen prevention. And that'll include some upgrades to some buildings. We're trying to look at the most cost-effective way of doing that and doing it over a 24 to 36 month timeline so that we can do that. So it's not so damaging to the budget.
And I'm sorry, where do showers fall into this?
Well, initially we had planned to put showers out of Kamlaki. The money is just simply not there for that this year. We're going to have to look at that for next year.
We did budget for the showers, but we
We
ended
did.
up overspending because of all the remedial work.
Yes, that's
In
correct.
the other area, okay. The receivables for March and April. So receivables consists of MTO billing, permits, insurance, like what?
So the initial receivable that you're seeing in the March timeframe, and Nicole might be able to better speak to this, but it is primarily an MTO billing, and I believe it was one billing we had for a field fire, correct?
Yeah, and it was for last year.
Yeah,
Call out for last year.
yeah. So unfortunately, the MTO they're not speedy at paying us. They're speedy at telling us when we're not filling out the form wrong and sending it back to us, but not so much as at paying us. So we do have some outstanding bills to the MTO right now. So that would be one of the calls that we had last year, as well as we also billed for a open burn that got out of control. And then we did the same subsequently, and that's where you'll see the payout receivables for the April month.
Yes, thank you.
Barry, do you have anything?
I do, Mr. Chair, thank you. Chief, going back to what you talked about, the grants, going back to the March payables, that one from Femco Canada, backboards, restraints and mobilizers. Is that gonna be covered under the grants?
It'll be covered under the, because it was required for the EFR training. We'll be using that through the cannabis grant. that $10,000 will cover that. It was anything related to that training, so we used that to pay for that in the books as well.
Okay. I see that we renewed the Who's Responding app, the annual subscription. I keep hearing I guess maybe I just need clarification. Is that Who's Responding app still viable? Are we still using it a lot? Because I hear different stories now and then about it.
I personally use it quite often, almost every time, because sometimes I don't catch the page, so I play it back so that I can. And depending on where it is, it might come up with a map on, and as you know, I'm still learning the area. So I don't want to take a left when I should have taken a right. I do think a lot of our members are using it. A few, I think, find it difficult in areas where there is cell phone issues. For the most part, though, I'd say 70% of our staff are utilizing it. They're not always getting to the point where they can click over that they're actually responding. But they're using it for reference to as to where to go and what the call is.
Okay. Long as we're getting some value out of it, that's my major concern.
And if I may, through the chair, I don't think we're using it to its full potential. I think there's some other areas within that we could be using that might reduce our call volume even more, particularly when it comes to open burn issues.
If I may go, Mr. Chair, to the April payables. I see we lost an antenna on pumper 7. Got this one really secured down.
So,
Just a clarification to the Receiver General of Canada. We had a radio authorization renewal for the Kamlaki station, which came in at 147, yet the authorization for the annual fee for Wyoming Link was over $1,000. Can somebody just explain to me why there's a difference on those?
is there a second one for Kamlaki? Nicole?
Those were the three I was given, unless it's gonna be on the May listing. It may be the other one.
Okay.
So that's, if I may, work up through the chair, that's to pay for our licensing.
Yeah, and I understand that, Chief. It's just I noticed the big difference there, so.
I do believe Kamlaki's bill, there is one that is supposed to come in that's about the same, is it not?
Yeah, it should be in it.
I think they would be the same.
Yeah. And I think Kamaki, they have one for the mobile radios, like the trucks. The second one came up for all the portables. I think that was just the mobiles and everything, so.
All right, thank you.
Anyway, they can get the federal government can get money out of us, your worship.
Yes, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else have anything on? Chris, you anything else?
Yes, just one question, thank you. So, you mentioned some of these larger expenses were from the grant. Although 2 different grants, it sounds like you're utilizing the cannabis grant and the other grant that we received, that was around 26,000.
That's approximately $26,000.
So we have 36,000 in total in grants that you utilized. Have you maxed out the 36,000 now?
If I may, through the chair, no, we haven't. We've only trained about 65% of the folks that we want to this year. But we have another class scheduled for June, and that should max out the grant right there. I know myself, I have to take the course. And there's a few others that need to take the course. So the plan was to get 20 to 24 members already done this year. We've achieved 17. So we're not doing badly considering it's a 2-weekend commitment. So it's and we're fortunate. The folks that are able to make it are often the ones that are first on the pumper too. So they're the first in on the medicals. So we're seeing a good mix of folks from both Kamlaki and from Wyoming taking the training.
So, your goal is 24 and we're at 17, but are you gonna have 24 by June?
But if I may, through the chair, I can't speak to that. I don't.
Oh, you don't know how many?
I don't know. We've initially we had the course planned for the weekend. We had to change it because then we realized, okay, there's other commitments on the weekend. I don't like running courses on Mother's Day. Never get people out. So we then have changed it to June timeframe. I believe we're going to be more successful in getting people signing up. It is a tough time of year. And unfortunately, the way they put the grant doesn't give us a lot of wiggle room, but we'll work around that.
Anybody else have anything doing a question on there? Add to it? No? I don't have a whole lot. I'll just ask maybe one question here on Mike, Mike Malloy.
Yep.
On the first, emergency first responder training there, $7,345, and then manuals. How often is that training, done?
Every 3 years.
Every 3 years. That's a must, right?
Yeah, well, it makes us meet the requirements of the ENR bylaw, yes. But we forecasted that, or as it'll be forecasted into future budgets. We forecasted a considerable amount of money into first aid, which we haven't really used, we haven't even really touched yet. But well, at least not for this training right now, so as we move forward, we're forecasting that into future budgets. The plan is to do 20 folks a year, and if we do it right, then it's a consistent. Right, it only really increases our first aid budget by about $5,000 a year. And it offers us a lot more liability protection when we start, especially getting into traffic accidents, removing patients from vehicles, things like that, where spinal immobilization and head and neck injuries become more prevalent. And certainly we don't need to be named third party in a lawsuit because of that.
So this is not training that we can do ourselves.
No, we have to bring in an outside contractor. And I would say that if you speak to both chiefs, the feedback, we're getting on Mr. Malloy's training is very, very, very positive. The guys are leaving pretty confident.
So new firefighters, how soon do they need that particular training?
If I may, through the chair there, well, again, we're looking at. We have a 2-year plan to bring every firefighter up to where they need to be. And first year would consist of basic first aid, which a lot of folks that we find applying are already qualified. And then your certification training in firefighter 1 and 2, and your hazardous materials and operations level. Then the second year would focus on getting their DZ license, pump ops, and EFR training.
Yeah, go ahead.
On that. I just remember before when I saw a name on the payables. I just questioned whether we should be putting names on the physicals, and then we decided we're going to.
He does have a company business name, does he not?
It just said Mike Malloy.
I know Mike probably doesn't care, but yeah, you're right. I believe he does have a corporate name. We can get that put on in the future.
Yeah, I think maybe it just might be more. Like Malloy, right?
You ever met him through the chair? If you ever met him, you'd never forget him. And in fact, I wouldn't mind getting him to come down and sit with the committee and talk about his experiences as fire chief of Meaford and the things that he had to go through when they were charged under the MOL for 6 counts. Because they had a firefighter come out of their building, one of their buildings, VSA, vital signs absent, later talking in the ambulance and all the trouble and everything they went through. And the only thing that saved them was their trading records. And they had to put their capital budget back 8 years, cost them $1 million to pay the defense.
So basically, I was just referring to for like historical, somebody looking back on it.
Well, no, I don't know, but I
To refer to it, just even if they needed to do something.
I wanted to throw that in there as an idea for the fire committee.
The other, is that a person's name on the other line, or is that a name of a company? Shane Rollins?
So he's one of our employees, and that is for his DZ licensing, which we pay for upon successful completion.
Reimbursement.
Right. So do we need to be putting?
No, we could simply put their badge number in.
Everybody agree with that?
That is a procedure change that would ripple across all committees in the council. So how about I will discuss it. Norma and I will discuss it further with the senior managers and decide how best to proceed on that. And then we'll start with this committee since this is where the request has started at, and then we'll go.
Yeah, we did discuss it
I had put the name of a firefighter for the boots that were ordered.
But like on these documents here today, there's several names on there, like cell phone fees and everything else, but remember one time the committee actually asked to be more specific, you know, on who's charging that stuff up, especially credit cards and stuff like that. So at that time,
Well, that makes sense.
yeah,
for
like they
sure,
wanted to
for
know
credit cards,
who
yeah.
we even talking about, you know, and they wanted it open and transparent, right? So, yeah, so maybe we better
Let
leave
me talk to
that.
senior management, and then next meeting, we'll, under business arising, we'll have a little bit further discussion once senior management has discussed it. I understand the need for privacy, but if you're submitting a bill to the town, it's a public entity, we're paying out money, so it's kind of a.
Okay, so that's good to know. So is that what's happening here? He's
Yes.
submitting a bill for reimbursement,
Yes.
or we're just saying we paid this for his testing? Because
They
it doesn't
submit the
spell it
bill for
out
reimbursement.
one way or the other.
So if I submit a expense through my expense sheet, that does not necessarily show up in payables. However, if correct, Norma? Or does it show up in payables?
It wouldn't show up here, no, but he had to complete the course,
No, I know.
and so then he invoices us to be paid.
Oh, he does. He's invoicing
So
for
it's kind of-
reimbursement.
Yes,
Okay, because it isn't clear that way. I just thought, we're paying this for this guy's test, right? But you're saying it's a reimbursement.
it's
request.
reimbursement. He had to
Okay.
complete and pass, and then he
Yeah.
puts it in and we.
Well, it makes sense in that sense, for
If we
sure.
don't pass, we don't pay, is that correct?
Right.
That's correct.
The MTO doesn't invoice you, you pay and,
Yeah.
you know,
I just thought the town would have paid for those tests. I don't know why they're
you
paying.
can't, so
Oh, they can-
you can get an invoice or bill, and other things, so.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, because like even in the council business, we'll go to conventions, we submit, everything's on there, your name, your hamburger you had, everything under your, it doesn't matter what
Well,
you
we're
had.
counselors,
Yeah.
these are
We're
different.
well, yeah. Okay, so you're gonna look into that, Adam, because it would affect almost every,
We'll talk as
Yeah.
a senior management team to decide to bring back our thoughts on the matter.
yep. Okay, anything else on the payables, receivables? Anything else? Okay, that was moved by Kristen, seconded by Gary. The Fire Exec Committee receives and approves payables for March and April 2024. All in favor? Gary, thank you. Okay, 6.1, Fire and Emergency Services First Quarter Update. Prepared by Eric Campbell, Fire Chief, Director of Fire Emergency Services, and Norma Roderick Priest, Treasurer, regarding the Fire and Emergency Service First Quarter Update of 2024. Be received and filed, and that was moved by Gary and seconded by Christian. Okay, any comments, questions?
I mean, what is there to say? There was no hazmat? Maybe an agreement?
No, that's coming up next.
Did I skip one?
The First Quarter Update
Oh,
for the budget.
okay.
Lots of questions here.
Great.
No, really?
I will be submitting one of these every 4 months so that the fire committee has in writing what we're actually accomplishing. I accepted this role upon understanding that I would be completely transparent. I'm doing that in every way possible, and so is the staff, especially the senior officers. Leave that, and we will continue.
Yes, I do like it, but you are doing it, so it's not all at once at the end of the year. Seeing seeing where we're at. I don't know that I saw the revenue. Accumulating revenue, if you're doing accumulating expenses.
I don't know if I put that on as a point, but yes, we have started to collect revenue. I do appreciate it through the chair. Yeah, I didn't put that on as a point, but we have been successful in starting to collect revenue.
Well, and you're noting it every month, and if you're gonna do a quarterly update, it just makes sense.
Any comments, Gary?
No, I'm just, it's good to see that you've looked for a new uniform supplier that can save us some money. Kudos for that. I think that's a a good avenue, and of course, I like the idea of moving forward with a full fire prevention plan, including the smoke and seal alarm education coming forth. So I think we've been asking for that for a while, so nice to see that happening.
So through the chair, if I may, revenue is on page 15 of the document,
Oh, it is there.
second last page of the document. And the last page, other revenues too, so there's 2 pages of revenues there. In that, you'll see the town grant, which is just the your budget allocation for the year. But you can see that there's been, as of the report, which was at the end of March, there was $2,239.44 of revenue from UNPO, and then another $895.86 from Collards.
So that gives.
Yes, ma'am.
I like about the quarterly update too. It kind of gives you an idea where you're at. And if there's anything that is going over budget on any line item, you kind of pick up on it and it's transparent to not only the committee, but the council. And which, you know, we're usually pretty close to being on budget. Not that often I've seen it go, you know, way off to the right or left, so.
The only, if I may through, Mr. Chair, the only issue we might have, of course, right now, you're going to see some higher numbers when it comes to what we call training hours. Because we have a lot of the work that's been done at Kamalaki and other places, or was done by our members. We have to pay them so that they're covered by WSIB when they're doing that. So painting the facilities, all the makeover work that was done at Kamalaki, a lot of those folks were paid for doing that. But obviously, once that work is done, that will level off. One of the things that we do need to look at is how we're dispensing or how we're displaying our hours. Right now, you're seeing the hours in the budget as training hours and as hours for service when we go on service calls or emergent, non-emergent calls. That's not a true reflection of what we're actually doing. We have folks that come in weekly to try and, you know, they work a little bit here and there to keep the halls clean and, you know, equipment serviced, and those hours aren't necessarily separately accountable. And in the future, we'd like to set that up so that you can see those hours as a separate entity.
Yeah, I think that's been going on ever since I've been on fire, like people being paid for cleaning and stuff, but I don't recall it ever being singled out or so that's good for transparency.
I think that way we're not showing that we're doing all these many training hours, and that's not realistic. It's not a realistic approach as to what we're actually spending the money on. I mean, there has to be, with me being the only full-time employee, I'm counting on a lot of these folks to do the little extras that we're not gonna have time for.
Okay, anything else, Christian?
Yes, the bunker boot.
Bunker boots, yes, we had a bunch that expired. We had to replace them.
Yes, and I see we only budgeted for something. I'm trying to find it.
We're, if I may through the chair, we kind of touched on this before. Those bunker boots will be offset by bunker gear that we're required to purchase this year. So as far as PPE goes, our cost should be relatively level. We're not, we have a couple sets of gear where we're going to see a bit of an influx as we have a number of helmets that are expiring this year. But again, this will come back to proper life cycle management. It wasn't done properly before. We were having all these things come in all at the same time, and we should be replacing X amount of total sets of PPE per year and keeping that stable so that we're constantly rotating gear in and out of service so that we have a stable time frame or a stable dollar figure for the budgets moving forward.
Yes, and I do remember the big expense on them. I just thought it was within budget, but then when I read it this way, it shows kind of like it's way out of.
No, that's just because we separate the lines for each particular piece of PPE. But in the future, if you look at the overall section for PPE, you're gonna see that it's not that, we haven't used all that money yet. And while we're on the subject of PPE, if I may, I know we touched on it on here, but one of the things that really came to light at the conference, while we were there, at the Chiefs conference and the trade show was we're paying about $900 to $1,000 more for a set of PPE than we need to be. For bunker pants and bunker boot or bunker jackets. So we found a new supplier that produces them in Canada. A really good company that will custom make us bunker gear for about $900 less than we're currently paying now. So that's a significant savings, and we're gonna take full advantage of that.
And that gear has the no cancer causing.
So if I may, I don't wanna get into this too much, but I also sat through a lecture by a scientist who literally does textiles in the United States talking about PFAS-free gear. And he literally sat there and told us that there is no such thing as PFAS-free gear. Because there's over 1,700 members of the PFAS family and just over 70 of them are detectable. So there's no way they can say that there's any such thing as 100% PFAS gear. The science isn't there yet. The other part is when you remove PFAS from the gear, we find that wicking, which is when the material absorbs moisture, absorbs different fluids, in particular with POL-based fluids like diesel and gas. The PFAS-free gear actually absorbs it much more readily than PFAS gear. So do we trade the protection off from the carcinogens for possible thermal burns? And this is kind of where we're at. The science just isn't there yet. And I think we're a while before we find out what the final verdict there is. And it was interesting to listen to him. He came up from Texas and I spent 3 hours and he showed us pictures and showed us all the little chemical breakdowns and stuff. And I'm not a chemist, you know, atom this, atom that, whatever that means. But when he actually sat down and showed us the flame testing and the wicking testing and everything else, I was shocked. Because we're trading this gear in for something that's supposed to be less carcinogenic, yet now we're increasing the chance of thermal burns. So. And I would like to see, before we go out and invest huge amounts of money as a municipality, I'd like to see a better study done where the science is more confirmatory. You know that 70 to 90% of exposure can be reduced through proper washing, proper decontamination on scene, and then showers afterwards, proper use of soap. We do know that. So right now, I think that'll be a large area where we focus our efforts. A bit more of confirmatory science that says, yes, this gear is worth money. Because basically it cuts the shelf life of the gear in half. When we go to PFAS-free gear, it is the same cost as regular gear, but we only get half the use out of it. So we're doubling our costs. So I really, if we're going to go down that road to be responsible to our stakeholders and our firefighters, because they need to be fully aware of what that means when we make that switch, I think we need to have more science to back it up.
No, I think that's excellent feedback and, you know, and even, they say it's cancer causing, but you know, like our firefighters actually, like, is there statistics on how many got cancer? And I mean, you know, you gotta get right down to the nitty gritty to make a major change in something. It has to be, like you said, the scientific proof.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I actually sit on I'm a co-chair for the Science and Technology Committee for the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs. And that's what we're looking at right now. The Cancer Committee, which I sit on as well, they're doing a keyed study, which means a controlled study of 5,000 firefighters, both career and paid on call, to see what the true exposure rates are. Right now, we don't have enough control in the studies that we're seeing to really say that the data is accurate. And, you know, what does that mean? And I think, as we all know, sitting around the table, this is a data-driven industry. Ultimately, people have driven, but a lot of this is data-driven. And we're seeing that now. You know, what does it mean? PFAS-free gear. What does it mean? I mean, you have PFAS in your raincoats, you have PFAS in your frying pan, right? It's something we're around, and there's actually an example that Health Canada says you can have for PFAS exposure, right? So yeah, the statistics weren't done when they generated them. They weren't done with enough control to say this is what they actually are. So we're just in the process of doing that.
Okay, any other questions on the quarterly budget update? Okay, that was moved by Gary, second by Kristen, to report prepared by Campbell, Fire Chief, Director of Fire and Emergency Service, and Treasurer regarding the Fire and Emergency Service first quarter update 2024 be received and filed. All in favor? Thank you, Gary. Okay, moving on to 6.2. Moved by Kristen Rodriguez, seconded by Gary Atkinson, that the report by Eric Campbell, Director of Fire and Emergency Service, dated May the 7th, 2020, regarding the repeal of bylaw 28 of 2022, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the town of Petrolia and the town of Plympton-Wyoming, be received. The committee supports repealing the bylaw and forwards the recommendation to repeal the bylaw to council to facilitate the formally repeal of bylaw 28, 2022. Oh, discussions on repealing a bylaw 28 of 2022.
So repeat, what's there to discuss? We passed a bylaw that we shouldn't have. And somebody thought there was hazmat and petroleum expertise and there's not. I don't understand how it all happened, but.
Well, I think I could be wrong. I don't think I am. At the time we hooked into them because they could supply hazmat. Is that
So
correct? We told them.
my understanding is that the Plympton-Wyoming chief at the time and the Petrolia chief at the time had those discussions. And Petrolia had been working towards that, but they didn't currently have it. And the former chief of Petrolia did not necessarily bring the proposal forward to his council either. They do not have those services though.
Yes, chief.
Going back before any guys were here, always good to have an old guy here. Back probably over 20 years ago through the county chiefs, everything else that we kind of looked at it as a hazmat for countywide. And Petrolia Station was picked and Corby Station was picked to house a trailer and everything else. I think since then, they started with it and then training fell off and people were interested in whatever, that's kind of fallen apart, but that bylaw kind of was going back to the initial initiative that we did and never kept up with, unfortunately, so.
Because back in 2022, I recall, like we had discussed going with Sarnia for hazmat. And then the chief at the time said, well, why would we do that? And we right next door here. I believe that's where bylaw 28 of 2022 come from. We approved it from what the information we had. Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chair, it's, we do have, through the county coordinator and the Provincial Emergency Operations Center as stated in the staff report, access to those assistants. If we do it appropriately, there's actually very little or no cost to us as a municipality. If we enter, and we enter an automatic aid agreement, which we would have to, because we can't reciprocate, so it would not be a mutual aid agreement. There could be a significant cost there, depending on who we bring in. If we access the services appropriately through the county coordinator and the POC, then those costs would be significantly reduced, if not null and void. Ultimately, of course, we would bill back whoever made the mess. But the reality here is if we use the POC and those services, they can deal with that, not us.
Okay, then, all in favor of repealing Gary? Oh, you're
I'm in favor.
okay, repealing bylaw 28 of 20. All in favor? Thank you, Gary. All right. Okay, no bylaws at this time, other than the repeal. Correspondence, no items at this time. Recommended reading. Nothing there. Item number 10, Nicole, do you want to speak of this one, or Adam? One of you is on the detailed text in the minutes.
So a report was brought to council, maybe also so you're all familiar with that report, outlining the previous practices versus common practices in regards to detailed minutes. That council endorsed no longer keeping detailed minutes based on that report, Therefore, your minutes now will only basically have the proceedings of the meeting. However, they will include a link to the YouTube site so people can watch the discussions that did occur instead of reading a recollection of those discussions.
Yeah, my understanding is that motions, stuff like that will still be recorded as it is now. But
Yes,
the discussion we have on a lot of items, like we have a discussion and, you know, somebody might be really in favor of something, but before the meeting's over with, they may totally switch. So it's just a discussion to make a decision. So the decisions will be recorded and stuff, but just not the general chatter.
It doesn't go on here.
Plus, you can go back into YouTube and take a look at everything you said. Sometimes you don't like listening to yourself, you know, but so that's what 10.1 is all about. If you have any issues with it, talk to the CAO. Other than that, all committees, council, all going same direction. So, and actually, my understanding was in the original bylaws that we don't put in those kind of details anyways, but it's just something that started happening and getting this.
The municipal act clearly states that the clerk is to report the decisions to council without comment. So detailed minutes can be considered with comment. So this brings us more in line with the intention of the municipal act.
Plus my understanding, what I've been told, the work involved for the secretaries and something, like it's just something else. You know, trying to take minutes, then going back and having to review all the videos. Now, that's a bylaw that we have. They're like, it's just duplicating. So that's what that's all about.
Administrative assistant.
Administrative, yeah.
Secretary.
Okay, if there's no comments on that, we'll move there to 10.2 bacon burgers.
Yeah, I'm not sure, too much of an update. It's just, one day this year, June 15th from 9 AM till 4 PM.
June 13th.
15th, Saturday of, Father's Day weekend. Yeah, planning's underway, so. Yeah.
Are you putting the mayor on onions again?
No, I don't think so.
I will offer up the help of the committee if
Yeah, I'll help.
you would.
I will.
Freeze the onions first, you won't cry then.
If
Now you tell me, Scott.
your social club would care for us to help, you can convey that to me and I'll convey it to the members. If they want us, if they don't, we'll come and eat them anyways.
We'll pass along the support and let them know.
If I may, a big thanks goes out to Captain Freer, Brian Freer. He's doing a lot of that like work and has for the last couple of years, if I'm correct.
20th year he's been on here.
A big shout out to him.
The first 2 years he was here.
So I've been told after that weekend, I may never look at a bacon burger the same again. So
You'll go home smelling like one. Through you, Mr. Chair, to DC Freer, do you need, like, I got council that would be more than, besides just this committee of council, you could utilize their help as well, or more, you okay with that?
Definitely, sure. Yeah, we would appreciate the help.
You're prepping on the Friday as well?
It's Friday morning, afternoon, and then, start first thing on Saturday morning,
What was the times again? Sorry.
9 till 4 PM.
Thank you.
I'll have lots of fire safety materials to give out that day as
Hey,
well.
I put on a fresh air mask last time for those onions.
Oh.
It still didn't work.
Still not the nicest job. Okay, moving on, any new business, Chief, Jordan, any new business for you, Mr. Freer? Norma, any new business from you? Kristen, any new business?
Well, we have our district chief here who's in his 45th year. With us, so I thought maybe we
Well,
could
that is-
acknowledge that here today. So congratulations.
Absolutely, congratulations. I did get an opportunity to drop in and see the chief about a week and a half ago and congratulate him, and 45 years is a long time, and I think the building out there is about the same age, isn't it? No, how old
It's
is it?
younger, isn't it?
Building was built 89, I believe,
89?
so. It's about 30 years old, so.
That's a lot of years service, so I'm sure something else will be coming along from the council, I'm sure, so congratulations. Anybody else like to say anything on that topic?
I may, Mr. Chair. Councilor Rodriguez stole my thunder, but yes, we.
Yeah, I knew that.
Congratulate,
Once again.
want to congratulate Scott personally on 45 years service, as well as the help that he's given to me since I started with my rival. So it's great to see someone of such dedication. I'm not sure I'll make 45 years. I'm not sure I'll live that long, but it is wonderful to see, and thank you very much, Scott.
Valuable.
Here you go.
I'm gonna give you stories from 30 years ago.
Really, right?
I have no.
Nothing, Chief, do you have any new business to add?
No, we did touch base on the 32. Captain Fair again has been working very, very hard on the 32. The seat's done. I believe they're still working on the engine housing, the transmission housing, I believe. But it's looking good for hopefully the fall. To tote around and everybody can put their best bib and tucker on away from the seats. So that's the hope.
Put our top hats on and
Is
is it over at Broadway, the engine, or is it still at the hall?
It is, the chassis is still in Wyoming Station, the engine's still in Sarnia. Yeah, the chief said the bell housing, one that meets up together, so the next step is getting that put back into the truck and as well getting the brakes and hubs and wheel bearings all looked at. Yeah, it's coming along.
Great, thank
Yeah,
you.
we got some additional chrome getting added to it too, so it'll be shinier.
Well, I'm really glad that we proceeded with that and you know, I'm glad we're gonna use it. You know, I look at the one in Forest, I drive by there almost every other day and sitting behind that window and you know, ours, we're gonna get her out and we're gonna use it and pretty,
Warwick has some too, don't they?
Warwick, yeah, so,
That's a pretty one.
yeah, okay. Yeah.
So normally on our, if I may.
Yeah.
Normally on our meetings, there's supposed to be working documents and SOGs or SOPs or. Well, SOGs are guidelines and then there's procedures. So
If I may through the chair.
I didn't see them and was
That's
just,
a very good question. So what we've done is we've put it out to the staff. We're forming an SOG committee. I've got a couple of things that I have to deal with previous to that. And that committee will form and they're gonna start going through the SOGs and updating them. It's just too much for us to do as officers, so put a committee together separately. They're the ones using them. Following section 21, that is in progress right now. Like I said, there's a couple of things we have to kind of tie up before we can get to that point.
and then there was the working document.
Yes,
My understanding.
Yes. Supposed to be on every meeting.
If you want,
Which is not-
no, I can put it on every month. There's not gonna be a lot of change right now, but yeah, I can make sure it is included in the future.
And then health and safety committee meetings. Or minutes, how is that?
Actually, I think we're doing well. We, if I may through the chair, we've registered a number of people for their part 1 certification. It's online. They're able to work through it on their own pace. And then we're gonna look at doing a part 2 fire specific, as I said before, getting everybody in. We're gonna open it up to the county because I would like them to come here and in person. And unfortunately, the folks that we're dealing with at Pisha to go and look at doing an audit, excuse me, he had a family emergency, so he was off for about a month and a half, so we haven't heard back from them just currently. He's just back to work the last week or so, so he just reached out to me last week, and of course I was away. So we're in the process of getting that back online to see what that is looking like to get a complete audit. In the meantime, both district chiefs have got their committees together and they're meeting and they're bringing forward some recommendations. So I think we're in good shape. We've got some work to do. But we're prepared to do it. And that is one of my 4 goals for this year, is to have that all done and us looking at having a proper health and safety program in place.
Right, and we'll see those minutes like we have in the past.
As far as I know, that they haven't met, they met you've already seen this quarter's minutes. They haven't met since then, so obviously you won't see any minutes.
So we meet quarterly. Okay.
Just to back up there, the working document and the SOG updates now. We've been talking about this now for a few years, but, my understanding, there was a committee, SOG committee formed, and.
People have left and everything else, so
Pardon me?
people have left and disinterested and everything else, so it's kind of.
So it's kind of disintegrated,
Yeah.
because we had a committee and they were gonna update, was it 3 or 4? SOGs every few months, and they were gonna be all done by.
We have, so I've had 8 members approach me about being involved. So we're just going through those process right now. I want to make sure that we have even representation, not only just from the north and the south halls, but also from all ranks. Because SOGs affect everyone. Part of that process too is to educate the folks on SOGs. We've now issued out copies of the current SOGs to all officers. Thank you to DC Freer for doing that. They have access to it. That's a start. We've started to generate some SOPs. Some of those SOPs, which are different than an SOG, which will be mandatory, will be coming along as part of the carcinogen prevention program. So things like decon and stuff like that, it's not gonna be an option. You will do it. Because it's gonna be a condition of your employment, because we have to, as part of section 26 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Right, so those are things more to follow on that. So that is a complex, there's a lot of cogs in that wheel. It's not just simply going along and rewriting the SOG. Some of them it is, some of it's not. We've got to figure out where they're gonna fit into things. Fire service right now, especially with carcinogens and what we're learning with the science, it's evolving like I've never seen, and I've been doing this for 20 years. And I would suspect Scott, having done this for 45 years, is probably sitting there saying the same thing. It's evolving at a faster rate than any of us anticipated, so trying to keep up with those and getting all the cogs in the wheels so that we can get that sorted out is not easy, but we're working on it.
Well, like going back to the working document, and I don't wanna bring back a lot of old thoughts here, but there was a lot, that working document belonged to the firefighters.
Yep.
60 firefighters. And there was a lot of things in there, especially SOGs, that concerned a lot of them. And I'll be quite honest with you, I'm not sure where all of them stand today. Like there was, there was rope rescue, there was elevator rescue, all that kind of stuff that kind of hung out there. And I'm not sure how we really concluded on a lot of it, like especially your ropes and stuff. Remember all that rope stuff about where the ropes were being inspected and who was even qualified, elevator rescue, which and so a lot of it
I may through
kind of still out there somewhere in the.
If I may through yourself, I don't mean to interrupt, I apologize, but if I may, we have an ENR bylaw, and we can only train to what council has agreed, the level of service we're gonna provide. And things like elevator rescue, it would be an awareness level, right? Things like rope rescue, it would be an awareness level. We wouldn't actually be conducting rope rescues, right? So, I mean, right now, our focus as directed by this committee and by council is to get our mandatory certifications done. And that's where we're heading. And when we get into SOGs and SOPs, they're operations, right? So of course, we will provide you those as information, but when it comes to the actual SOGs themselves, they're gonna be up to the department to generate them and to follow them, right? So, it is one of those things that an SOG, we could write it tomorrow and it'd be at a date 3 weeks later. That's how fast these things are changing. So I'm not trying to make excuses, but there's a lot of cogs in this wheel when it comes to SOGs. And right now, like we even discussed it with PFAS gear, like looking at how we're purchasing and what we're purchasing for gear. That's a major transition, right? It's a major cost issue. And we don't have enough data right now to provide you with an adequate answer.
I certainly realize a lot of things have changed, but yeah, we did run into some pretty big issues on SOGs and came to water rescue and on and paid 30, 40 pages of stuff. So I'm gonna pull these documents and
The ones that were brought forth in the working document, that we've either eliminated that service like water rescue and everything else, or have addressed the SOGs. That we did accomplish 10 or 11 SOGs in 2022.
yes,
And then with the upsets in 23, I guess that we kind of got behind, so.
Yeah, that's kind of why I think it's being brought up again. And then like the firefighters debated themselves on some of these SOGs on, well, like you said, the council directs what level of service and, you know, with a lot of things being brought in that really hadn't been directed that we're gonna do that, like boat rescue, for instance. So that there was some pretty big issues there. So I realize it's a big issue, but
Well, and that's why I think the chief is really trying to get through is that he's working on updating with the firefighters committee, the SOGs that are under your current level of service.
Yeah.
Anything above and beyond that level of service, maybe we can bring that back for discussion. Once all of our firefighters are certified and ready to go, once all of our existing SOGs based on our existing levels of services are up to date. And then we can look at whether council as a whole through this committee wants to increase their levels of service. And typically what we would do with SOGs, given that they are a departmental document, they'll be provided under recommended reading. That way you can read through them and ask questions as you see fit.
yeah, no,
So
that's
an understanding there.
that's good. Well, I know there's been a tremendous amount of improvements. We all know that at this table, so we gotta get people trained up. There's no better than that.
We are starting to get down the road of having, like I said, we've got a good plan in place. We've had a lot of good discussions with our mutual aid partners. We've had a very good discussion with the Ontario Fire Marshal's office. Will Davidson has been outstanding with this and helping us out. And his new role and the RTC is looking good, the regional training center model. There's a lot of work to be done. And a lot of these guys are doing a lot of this work and they're doing it on their own accord, right? You know, and you know, we've now appointed two, well, we're waiting to see if the two new training officers, because we had a vacancy out at the north end for a training officer that was temporarily filled by Captain General. And we had Will moving up, left a vacancy there as well. So now we've tentatively offered two folks positional offers from there, and believe it or not, they're both from Kamlaki. So both they're because the training aspect isn't hall based, it's based on overall department. Therefore, it makes sense that those folks are they're offered the positions. Of course, Dave wanted to keep his, and one other new individual, Claudio, has stepped up and he's been looking at it. And Claudio, with his background, is a logical fit, particularly from the records keeping aspect. Trying to keep everybody out of jail. But we've had a good luck. Let them, they're basically having their first meeting tonight to discuss a few things. And let them get their feet on the ground and start looking at what we need, generating a curriculum. We have got, thanks to Nicole, we've got a list of applicants. We are gonna look at doing a small skills evaluation, like a general aptitude test with those applicants, and then a small physical testing. Then from there, interviews, and then get conditional offers out to them. That's all happening. We'll have that probably aligned in the next 2 weeks. Literally, I'm taking a few days off next week. That's the only thing that's delaying us. Sorry about that. My son decided to take a job in a hunting camp way up north, and somebody needs to get him up there, or fishing camp, sorry. So I think we're heading down the right path. A lot of that is thanks to Nicole, Chris, and Scott for their hard work, because they've stepped up and done a lot of extra stuff. Dave has done a lot of extra stuff. Will has done a tremendous amount of work. And now Claudio is going to be asked to do a lot more work. So we're seeing a lot of great folks step forward and do extra stuff, and it's going a long way. They needed to kind of be, said, go ahead and do it. They needed that. Okay, let's fix it.
How many hires are you looking at? 6 to 8?
So right now, we have approximately 51 positions filled. So we'll be looking at hiring probably 10 or 11, depending on how we go. The reality here is that we'll probably hire a couple extras and with conditional offers, and understanding that they may not pass a medical clearance or something like that, or they might lose interest. So that way we're in a good spot. Plus we might have we might have folks leave us. So hopefully our attrition rate stays around 5 to 6 people per year. But this year, because we haven't hired in a couple of years, we've got to basically double the attrition rate, which makes sense.
Okay, yes.
Some reviews, just to make sure we're on the same page. So SOGs will be, as they're updated, brought to the committee under recommended reading, once they are updated. The working document will be brought back under business arising from previous minutes after the chief has had an opportunity to review it with his fellow officers and make comments on the items and where we're at on them. And then Health and Safety Committee meeting minutes for the fire departments will be also brought forth to this committee under recommended reading.
Now, just one other thing on the working document. Is that still on your bulletin boards? It's always supposed to be posted for.
I don't know when the last time one's been updated, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a while since there's been.
It's probably worth the officers to discuss it their next officers meeting and then update it and bring it back. to
Which we have on Wednesday night, do we not? Yep.
Any comments on that, Gary? Like you?
No, I think it's something that we know we need.
Yeah.
We made that commitment
We did.
long ago, so we need to stand by it.
So it's on the bulletin board. If somebody wants to add something, it's not going behind anybody's back.
No.
It's just,
It's part of the fire master plan as well. I think it's just part of our process as being a fire executive to be up to date on that kind of stuff.
and if I recall, and I'd have to go back and look at my past minutes, there was not very many items left on that working document. I can recall, not like, there was pages of them to begin with, but it was narrowed down to just.
Well, hopefully, once we look at it, it's just a matter of saying and, and comparing it to what our enabling and regulating bylaw, our DNR bylaw states, which at some point too, we have to do some work on that. I was hoping to bring that to you folks in June to be reviewed with some tightening up. We'll see how things go over the next month. Today, like, as you know, 3/4 of the day we shot, but in a good way. We're finding our volumes picking up, as does this time of year. So hopefully we can still get that stuff online. I think we can. June, maybe at the very latest the summertime, and if look at actually pushing it through in the fall. Just need to tighten up some areas in the bylaw. Better to protect council.
Well, I was gonna ask one question, and maybe I should have asked it a little earlier, but surplus equipment, surplus like boots, coats, hats,
So
fire trucks, whatever you got surplus. Do we keep an inventory of our surplus items? And the second part of my question is like with boots and coats and hats and all that, can that be donated to other fire departments, maybe?
So I happen to have a run-in with the president of the at the convention and the trade show, the president of the Firefighters Without Borders, and I said, well, I'd email you folks, and he never got back to me. And he said, well, here, email me now, and he gave me a spot where we could actually drop stuff off in Mississauga.
Oh.
So all of our surplus or expired gear, they can use PPE wise, because we looked after our stuff.
Yeah.
Right, there's a lot of surplus equipment that can be used by countries that don't necessarily have the same legal requirements as we do, and they don't have the same budgets that we do. So, excuse me, so we're going to donate that all through the Firefighters Without Borders. So that is the current plan. We just gotta tee up a time where we can drop it off. And it'll probably be a truck 5 thing with 3 or 4 firefighters to drive it down, and they'll take it on for us, and we'll get a nice picture of us setting it there, and we can put it into the paper and so forth.
Yeah.
Because it'll be good for the municipality to be recognized for their generous contributions.
As I drive through Kamlaki and the old car wash there, and I see, I don't know, it's fire coats sitting in the window or something like that, I'm thinking to myself, like, surely to goodness, somebody else somewhere.
We've been donating stuff for
Yeah,
years or better, so.
but we don't hear much about it. I guess, it's better we
Yeah.
pump ourselves up and get some credit, because this stuff is very useful. Like you say, we take good care of our equipment. So, okay, so
So.
Yeah. go ahead.
So, I know I've talked about this, before, but I'd like to formally ask if, the associations or association, whichever one. I'd like for the some sort of little presentation to see what happens with your money and what you're doing to put it back into the community. I think it's important for the public to know and recognize what you guys actually do. So if they're agreeable and you're agreeable,
The Wyoming for the wire, if I may, Mr. Chair. The Wyoming Association has been very active and they've given a lot of money over the years. To the halls. In fact. Mr. Freer was telling me that we're talking about Captain Freer. We're talking well over $300,000 in the last 20+ years. That's not since the association started. I think it would be good for the public to know. I can't speak to Kim Lackey, and I know they're starting to they're talking about doing some breakfasts and stuff like that, which is great, and it's a good start. And I know in the past they've done some stuff, but they've kind of been, I think COVID put a lot of stuff aside for them.
Like being in the bedroom community, it's always been a hard draw for all the years I've been there.
So,
it's not to say anything bad about Kim Lackey, but also to recognize what is happening. Too, right? It's not a slight on it.
Like the bacon burgers, that's not usually what the townwide garage sale or something. So like people are out and around and everything I heard.
Yeah, a little bit more advantage here.
but if I may, I think it's not necessarily a bad idea for the association to come on and just take a couple minutes and show what they've done. It'll be up to DC Jordan and DC Freer if that's something they choose to speak to their associations about. I'll leave it with them, but I don't have a particular issue with it. As long as we understand it is strictly for information purposes only.
Of course it is, and I think it's important for public awareness.
We've certainly talked about this before, and I just haven't got into in-depth discussion because, it's your association, it's separate from the town, so we talked about having them come to a meeting, and maybe that would be the perfect thing to do, is come and make a presentation to the committee right online, and what they do, what they've done over the
Public
years.
education.
And yeah, so, but yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Well, in this committee, and the chief and I have talked about it in the past, of getting together with the associations and finding ways to work better together as a group as a whole. Last couple of years have been tough and it's been a lot of changes, but I think there's room to rebuild that relationship and work together with the committee, the firefighters, this committee, sorry, the associations, this committee, management, to make a more fruitful relationship for all of us.
Yeah, well,
So the invitation's open.
I think what we'd like to do is probably the chief and I would probably want to meet with the associations one-on-one individually first. And then once we've had that one-on-one meeting, bring a presentation forward. That way they can talk hopefully what the committee would be expecting, and we can kind of figure out how to present how the group as a whole would like to see things move forward.
Yeah, no, excellent. Look forward to it this year.
Okay. Item number 11. Moved by Gary Ackes and seconded by Kristen Rodriguez, that the Fire Exec Committee adjourns until June the 17th, 2024 meeting, or for all of the states. All in favor? Thank you.